Hi, everybody. How's it going? This is Edan of LightCycleAstrology.com. Welcome back to the channel, friends. Today, we're taking a look at Mercury's upcoming conjunction to Uranus happening between June the 2nd to June the 6th. This is about a 5-day transit. So we're going to take a look at the timing of this today, as well as get into some archetypal themes to watch for, and a theme word, song, and movie that I'm using to help me articulate or get at the essence of the quality of this particular conjunction in the sky in the sign of Taurus. Now, I do have an announcement before we get into it. Starting next week, I'm going to be beginning content for the week instead of for individual transits throughout the week. I'm going to be calling this Weekly Wednesday. And so this is beginning next week. So this is a great time to hit notifications if you haven't already. But essentially what I'm going to be trying out on the channel, because I need a little bit more time to balance all of the things that is happening in my life right now. I have a newborn baby, I'm building a house, and I'm beginning a horary class that is going to last over the next year or so. And I'm going to need time to study and learn this new branch of astrology that I will and plan to incorporate into the channel as well. So that's going to be exciting. But my plate is getting quite full with the baby, the house, and the new course that I'm taking on. So I thought what we could do is, instead of going into each individual transit like we do now on the channel on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, we'll do just an overall look at the week on Wednesdays. And so we'll take a look at the clock, we'll look at the major hitting transits of the week, and then we'll actually do themes for the week instead of themes for the individual transits. And I'm actually looking forward to trying this out, because I think if we come up with themes for the week, it's going to provide a continuity between the transits. Like, for instance, this week we took a look at the grand trine between Venus, the Moon, and Neptune on Monday. Today we're looking at the conjunction between Mercury and Uranus. And on Friday, we're taking a look at the full moon in Sagittarius. So I try not to bring in everything all at once, because it just becomes overwhelming with those individual transit videos. But if I'm thinking on terms of an overarching theme for the week, I'm going to include, okay, I know this week we're having a grand trine, we're having a conjunction, and we're having a full moon. So I'll be able to stand back and sort of ask myself, what are the overarching themes for the week? And we'll do, 3 or 4 themes that really encapsulate that. And I think that will provide kind of a nicer continuity between the themes, so that it's like easier to keep track of overall. So I'm pretty excited to give this a try. But anyway, that's going to be happening on Wednesdays. So next week, don't look for a Monday or Friday video, because we'll be beginning that content schedule next week. Of course, before we get into it, don't forget you can like, share, subscribe if you feel so inclined. That really helps the channel out. I love to get the comments. That's my favorite part, because I like to make this a two-way street between myself coming up with these ideas or themes for us to experiment with, and I like to see how they actually pan out for you guys, how you guys notice the astrology, all of that. It's really my favorite part. So you can always go to lightcycleastrology.com if you ever want to get a reading from me as well. Okay, now let's go ahead and pull up the real-time clock, and we'll take a look at the timing of this aspect between Mercury and Uranus, this conjunction, or adherence as it was called in the ancient world. So I have my real-time clock set to Eastern Standard Time, and this is really moving into the 3-degree range of engagement beginning Friday, June the 2nd at about 2:34 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So this is Mercury moving into that 3-degree range, getting close to Uranus, and this is when we begin to notice the energies between these planets blended together. The way that the ancient astrologers thought of conjunctions is they use this word adherence, which makes you think like the archetypes are like sticking together, or they're like blending together. Now, one thing we do have to mention, though, is that from the time that Mercury entered Taurus until the time that Mercury leaves Taurus, there is co-presence. So already we've been having this Mercury-Uranus themes kind of blending together, just because they're co-present in the same sign. But I think that out of that period where Mercury enters and then leaves the sign of Taurus, this next 5 days between Friday and next Tuesday, that 5-day range, is going to be the most intense period of those blending of themes, you might say. So that is one thing to keep in mind. Now, if we roll the clock forward to the perfection these two planets are going to move onto the same degree essentially on Sunday, June the 4th. And this is going to be right around 3:49 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You'll notice this is also the time that the full moon is coming through as well. So again, this is one reason why I'm kind of excited to make overarching content for the week that I could sum up thematically instead of just individually, because on Friday we're going to get into the full moon, but I may or may not pull in this conjunction because I'm thinking, well, I've already done it on Wednesdays. So, but this will definitely be part of the full moon energy because it's happening alongside the full moon as well. And then if we roll the clock forward to Tuesday, June the 6th, almost into June the 7th for the East Coast Standard Time, we see the separation moving out of that 3-degree range of engagement by 11:45 p.m. So that's when we see Mercury gaining enough distance away from Uranus. Again, there's still a whole sign blending of these two archetypal qualities, but essentially the most intense period of this will be tapering off by that point. So that is the timing of this. Now let's get into the archetypal themes to watch for here. This time around, in keeping in the spirit of Uranian kinds of things, instead of calling it the themes to watch for on my banner down here, I'm calling it archetypes in play. So just playing around a little bit here. Theme number 1 is you've got mail. So of course, whenever we talk about Mercury, Mercury was the ancient messenger god of the gods in the ancient world. He had that really interesting relationship with the sun. He was always tightly orbiting the sun and going back and forth with messages from Zeus or Apollo, and delivering messages to all the other gods. So of course, whenever we have a Mercury transit do anything prominent in the sky, you could expect messages to come through mail or any kind of communications, anything like that. And when you pull in that quality of Uranus, you sort of want to expect the unexpected. So this could be like the real surprise email you get from somebody you haven't heard in a long time, or thinking that you weren't going to get a job offer and then it comes through and it's like, whoa, it's just like something surprising. So that kind of flash in the pan, out of the blue, surprising or shocking message that comes through, or communication that comes through from somebody, that's definitely theme number 1 here. Theme number 2, I love this one, is dislodging our communication style, relational trends, or likes and dislikes. So when you think of Taurus as that seasonal time of spring, and this is in the middle of spring, so they used to call this month the fixed, or in the ancient world they called it the solid month of the season. So you think of Uranus almost disrupting or breaking up the solid earth quality of Taurus here. And could we be calling into question? Mercury likes to question things. Could questions come up, ways that we communicate, or ways that we listen or speak, or ways that we are heard or listened to, or ways that we listen to others? Could there just any number of things about communication? Could we sort of be calling into question those particular modes or methods and rediscovering something about how all of that works in our lives? So this could be any number of relational trends. It doesn't have to be just with communication. It could be questions about the kind of relationships we have, the way that they make us feel, because of course this is in Venus's sign of Taurus. And so you could include just relationships in general, or ways that you relate to other people in general, and likes and dislikes, I think, here as well. Okay, theme number 3 is liberation of mind and heart. This is my PC way of saying breakup. Not that somebody is going to break up with you, or there's like an imminent breakup with this transit, because of course that would be hyperbolic to say that. But if for certain people, if there is something that feels limiting or constricting or solid, there definitely could be that impetus to want to become liberated with anything that seems like it's oppressing the mind or the heart, because we're talking about a Venus ruled sign here in Taurus. So you definitely could see that if there is something that feels like it's holding you down or back, this could be a time where it's like, you know what, this isn't working. I have to liberate myself from this in order to find greater happiness, or to move my life along in the direction that I think my life should go at. So this is not selfish but selfish in a good way, where again, sometimes we find ourselves stuck in situations. And I think Uranus' job in Taurus is to break apart those situations. And so we could look for any number of ways in which we become liberated in mind or heart. So whether that's a job that we're not satisfied in, or a relationship, or a friendship, or anything like that, you might say. Okay, theme number 4 is an abundance of ideas. Taurus being the exaltation place of the moon, where the moon is lifted up and exalted. And this is really describing that springtime quality of abundance, where there's a proliferation of life and flowers and beauty and warmth and light returning, and all that springtime-iness is maybe summed up into the word abundance, right? So could this be a time where there's almost like information avalanche or overload, or just ideas coming through? Mercury, a god of communication and ideas. Could there just be a very busy mental quality to this that is almost like abundance? It's like, man, I can't write down the ideas fast enough, and these are all so great. Now, one thing though about Uranus and Mercury together is that sometimes you'll think it's almost like when you, like, if anybody has, you know, taken magic mushrooms, or it's like there's that quality of like having a really unique outside of the box idea, but then you sort of come down and you're like, I don't know if that's really such a good idea after all. So some of the ideas don't pan out, but some of them are just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I never thought of this before, you know? And there's that sort of almost like abundance or wealth of ideas. So either like a lot of ideas that are really, really great, or maybe just like particular ideas or particular thoughts or communication that has a lot of value to them, you know, it just really brings a kind of higher quality to it, I guess you might say, has that very exploration quality to it, where it leads you down rabbit holes and things like that. Okay, and we have theme number 5, which is investing in technology, machinery, medicine, or equipment. So, of course, Mercury is related to all of these things. He was, in the ancient world, he was a god of technology, machinery, and also medicine, and also astrology. You could have in astrology here as well. So, for instance, for me, this is right around the time where I'm beginning my new horary course, and Mercury is a god of astrology, right? So there's a breakthrough within a branch of astrology that I'm breaking into. So that's a good delineation for that. But this could be investing in like a new camera or microphone because it's Mercury, right? So things that speak or listen, speakers, you know, a phone, anything like that. The kind of silly example that I came up with was a farmer that would revamp his barn with new milking equipment, right? Because it's like Taurus and the cow and milk, and it's, I don't know, that image came into my mind. So it could be anything, I think, that moves your life towards the direction that has purpose or meaning for you, very much so, or, you know, brings your life towards success. So anything related to a personal business that you have. Could this be a time when you're investing in something or buying new equipment or something like that? Okay, and theme number 6, this one is in the spirit of Uranus, for me, has been an experimental signification of Uranus for me, is that from the mythology of Uranus itself, we take a look at how Uranus was, I think was pronounced Uranos, and was Father Sky. And Father Sky and Mother Earth, Gaia, in ancient Greek mythology, they were the original primordial gods. They were the gods that all gods came from. So sometimes I tend to think of Uranus as almost being like we're going back to our personal roots or our personal primordial self. And I think Uranus also has this very Olympian quality to it, where it's like a collective planet, and it's kind of that genius person at the top of humanity that discovers something. Like, for instance, Herschel, who discovered the planet Uranus. When Herschel discovered Uranus, he was the first, he was making his own telescopes. And so he was using his own equipment. So he needed the telescope to discover the planet. But, you know, it reminds me of that time ex-president Obama said, when you drive to work, you drive on a road that you didn't create, or something like that. He's like, you didn't make that road. And he was getting at that it takes a society. So sometimes the person at the top, the Olympian carrying the torch, is really moving He's the spearhead of humanity writ large. It's moving the whole species forward. So when we discover these great things, it has an impact on the rest of us. It sort of pulls us all along into the future. So for me, Uranus kind of has that essence of being this collective person at the top that is standing on the shoulders of everybody that came before, that invented, like for Herschel, somebody had to invent glass for him to make the telescope lenses, right? Somebody had to make metallurgy and for him to put the lenses into. So somebody had to, the past astronomers, all of the mathematicians, everything that came before makes it possible for a genius at the top to move us forward. So it's really an interesting connection between the species on a collective level from the past and this genius futuristic quality pulling the species toward the future. That's a little bit of the way that I think about Uranus. So this quality of either connecting to something very primordial in ourselves or within the species. We have access through the whole human species through our genetics, right? So might this be a time where we get back to something that is very at the roots? Could this be like listening to music that we haven't listened to in a long time? Could this be talking with somebody we haven't talked to in a long time, or thinking about something we haven't thought in a long time? Going back to some primordial roots. And of course, this is Venus's sign of Taurus, so there has that relational, social quality to it as well. So it could be about love, it could be about friends, it could be about goals or ambitions that we have, that is about wants or desires. But getting back to some very primordial, ancient connection within ourselves, or I think it even could connect to things like biological imperatives for mating, in terms of how men have always connected to women, or how women have always connected to men, or how people have always connected to each other, or anything that really gets back to almost like a species level baseline. That for me is theme number 6. Okay, and now let's get into the theme word, song, and movie. So I'm coming up with a word, a song, and a movie that will help tease out the description of the archetypes, so that we don't just have to rely on my clumsy articulation of what's happening in my head. So this gives us a little bit easier of a way to sort of tease this archetypal theme out. The theme word that I chose was percolate. And this is coming from 2 Latin words. One Latin word was per, which means to something going through something. And then colum, which is, of course, where we still get the kitchen column or strainer that we use today in the kitchen. And technically, this word was defined as a gas or a liquid that filters through a porous substrate or filter or something like that. So I really like this for a couple of reasons. For one, we tend to think of Mercury as this messenger god of communication, of movement, and this back and forth kind of quality that reminds us of like air. So in terms of like a gas, Uranus going through the sign of Taurus, we tend to think of that as sort of breaking up the solid structures. So for me, this is like Mercury is trying to break up the solid structures of our mind, of our heart, of our wants and desires, of our relational tendencies. There's this quality in which Uranus is sort of punching holes in things that we're really rigid about, or have developed kind of like a pattern or like a solid state architecture to. And I think that this transit really gets at that image of things percolating through something, like something coming through that typically doesn't come through easy, but can make it through. So I think percolate is maybe a good word for this conjunction. The theme song is Patience by Damian Marely, of course, one of the children of Bob Marley. That was, in my opinion, probably the best musician out of the group. But he had many children that were all great musicians. But this is just my favorite one. Now, I didn't realize how old this song is. It's about 10 years old. But Patience, why did I choose this? Because for me, it pulls in all of the elements of Taurus, of the earth, of the fixity, even the cow of Taurus, or the bull of Taurus, the qualities of Uranus and the qualities of Mercury. This is doing that because, first of all, it's a very clever song. It has that very, very clever, but it also has that very outside of the box. It just, when you listen to the lyrics and listen to this song, it's like, I just feel like something is turning my mind and it's like, huh? It's like, I feel like an ape that suddenly learned how to stand up or something. It just has this very reggae, revolutionary, rebellious, but very refined aesthetic quality to it. And again, it's like he's pulling us into the future with these ideas or these words or these lyrics at the same time that we're connecting to something very, very ancient. And at one point, he says something like, there's a line where he says that he's like, can you milk cows even though you drive cars? Can you fight wars? Can you make peace? I forget the exact words, but it's something along those lines. So it's like very, very closely related to the archetype of Taurus itself. It's talking about peace and milking cows and, you know, Mercury driving cars. So if you want to, go ahead and listen to this song, and I think it'll serve to explain what I'm trying to get at more than me just trying to describe it for you. But I think you'll get the essence of it if you listen to it. It'll make sense to you why I chose this theme song. But of course, there's probably many theme songs you could choose for this, but I think that this one fits nicely. Okay, and lastly, we have the theme movie, which is Benjamin Buttons. Now, I won't lie, this has been being promoted right now on Netflix, so I recently watched this, so it's just kind of on my mind. But why choose Benjamin Buttons to represent the themes of Mercury conjunct Uranus and Taurus? Well, it's an odd love story. It's about somebody that is moving towards youth. You know, he's born in old age and he moves in reverse. Mercury, of course, is a god associated with youth and young people or young brothers. But of course, it's a love story. So again, happening in the sign of Taurus, Venus's domain. And it's odd, you know, what could be odder as a love story where the plot is somebody born old that meets somebody, and as he ages younger, which is very odd, he has this attachment to somebody. But it's just kind of has all of those qualities of Taurus, Uranus, and Mercury, I think. So that's the theme movie that I picked. So that's what I have for today. Thanks so much, everybody, for watching. On Friday, we're going to take a look at the full moon in Sagittarius. And then next week, we're beginning our weekly Wednesday overview video. So look for that on Wednesday. And until then, I hope you guys have a wonderful week. And I'll be back again soon with another astrology video.